Hey folks, Erick Stakelbeck here. Welcome to a special weekend edition of the Watchman Newscast live stream. I had to come to you today on your Saturday because history was made today. Now, whether it was good history or disastrous history, we're not quite sure yet. But here's what we do know. The United States and Iran held talks in Oman, nuclear talks. Now, these were at first indirect talks where you have an Omani mediator basically passing notes between the U.S. and Iran. They're in separate rooms, and you have a guy, I guess, running between rooms and passing notes. At any rate, after that, there was a direct meeting as well. Steve Witkoff, who is President Trump's Middle East chief negotiator, met with Iran's foreign minister afterwards, and they apparently chatted. And they're going to meet again next Saturday, April 19th. This is history. You might say, how's that historic? Well, listen, to have the foreign minister and the top Middle East negotiator for the Trump administration for the United States meet face to face, even though maybe they had the go-between for the bulk of the meeting, for them to wrap it up by sitting face to face apparently and chatting, that's a big deal, folks. And it's largely unprecedented over the past 46 years since this wicked regime took power in Tehran, and the U.S. and Iran, for good reason, have been at loggerheads throughout that time. Now, we've got some things to discuss here. Number one, what do you think? Our watchmen and women on the wall, a highly educated audience. I like to say we're the best audience on YouTube, our viewers, over 1 million subscribers here. I'd love for you to weigh in. We got a very lively chat going on already. There will be thousands of people with us before we're gone. So weigh in. What do you think? Is this a good idea to even meet with Iran? Or is it just a colossal waste of time? Is the inevitable outcome, because the Iranian regime clearly cannot be trusted, and they've got a long history of dragging these negotiations out and stalling for time while they covertly continue to develop nuclear weapons, is it just a colossal waste of time? Is it bound, regardless, is this all bound to end in a military strike by the U.S., or Israel, or both working in tandem against Iran's nuclear facilities? What do you think? What's President Trump's angle here? You know, he's the master deal maker, of course. What's his angle here? What do you think? I'd love to know. Before we get into it, hey, be sure to subscribe, click the notification bell so you get alerts. I'm at home, by the way. You can hear a dog barking. There's two of them roaming around in this house, but it is Saturday, so I'm at home. So pardon the dog. He's a cute little guy, though. Maybe if he comes in here, maybe I'll give him a look-see for our large audience around the world. But hey, click that notification bell as well, because sometimes we come to you on a Saturday. Pretty much every weekday we're coming to you, and on the weekend sometimes as well, depending on the news cycle. And this is big. Here are some details from this meeting today. I'm going to give you my breakdown and my thoughts on it, what it all means, big picture, and are there prophetic implications? You might say, huh? If this is the first time you're watching this channel, know this. It's breaking news, current events, geopolitical news, and analysis and commentary, specifically on the Middle East, but we go broader. But it's all delivered from an unapologetically biblical perspective. I think that's what sets us apart. So we're going to get into the biblical prophetic implications as well. But here we go. Trump envoy Steve Witkoff and Iran's foreign minister met today after the first round of nuclear talks in Oman. So they had the talks indirect, then they actually met. The White House called the meeting, quote, a step forward in achieving a mutually beneficial outcome. We shall see. Iran's top diplomat says the U.S. wants to reach a new agreement ASAP, but that will not be easy. This was the first known meeting. Remember, I said this was historic, right? The first known meeting between the U.S. and Iranian officials in years. And this is according to the Times of Israel. Both sides are saving face. I don't know about that. Iran's trying desperately to cling on to the survival of their regime. The U.S. isn't saving face. It was a 2-hour-long session mediated by Oman with the U.S. and Iranian delegations in separate rooms. And the subsequent minutes-long conversation between Witkoff and Iran's foreign minister, Araghchi is his last name, represented a potentially major tipping point. It was easier to say Javad Zarif, their old foreign minister's name, but Abbas Araghchi His conversation with Witkoff, quote, represented a potentially major tipping point in ties between the U.S. and Iran. Again, we shall see. Trump has warned that the failure of these talks could lead the U.S. to strike Iran's nuclear program. And he said earlier this week that Israel would participate in such a strike, if not lead it. He did say that earlier this week to reporters in the Oval Office. After the end of more than 2.5 hours of indirect talks, the heads of the Iranian and American delegations spoke for a few minutes in the presence of the Omani foreign minister, and then they left the talks, and they took place, according to Iran, in a productive and positive atmosphere. The next round will be April 19th, and the location may not be Oman next week. A little more here. What did Oman say? An Omani source said the talks today focused on calming the region, prisoner swaps, and a potential nuclear deal. Well, number one, calming the region. Who set the region on fire in the first place? Iran and its proxies, its ring of fire. That's number one. Prisoner swaps. Number two, is this Iranian citizens held in U.S. jails will be swapped for any U.S. citizens held in Iranian prisons? Number three, a nuclear deal. Now, to me, that raises major alarm bells. And here's where we're at. Here's why. There's not much to go on. 2.5 hours a day in Oman. They met afterwards. But the substance of the talks, we've got that Omani source, which I just quoted there. But the substance, folks, we don't have a whole lot yet as to what was discussed. I would imagine, were there big ticket, massive items put forward today and massive proposals in the very first meeting? Not quite sure, but here's the deal. Here's President Trump's thinking here. He's thinking, look, not thinking, he knows Iran can't have the bomb. He's saying it now practically every day. Iran can't and won't have the bomb. It will never happen on our watch. Very clear about that. And unlike when Joe Biden says it, there's teeth when Donald Trump says it. Iran fears Trump. He's their biggest nightmare. That's why they tried to assassinate him. They hatched assassination plots against him that we heard about throughout 2024 in the run-up to the election. They fear Trump, and for good reason. Let's look at his first term vis-a-vis Iran. The most pro-Israel president in American history, number one. Number two, the hardest line ever of any U.S. president on the Iranian regime. Number one, we're talking about nuclear deals, a new deal perhaps. He pulled out of the first nuclear deal that Barack Obama inked because it was a disaster. Trump said it was, I'm paraphrasing, but this is pretty much what he said. It's the worst deal in history. He pulled out of that, number one. Number two, he eliminated the Iranian terror master Qasem Soleimani, who, other than the supreme leader, was pretty much the most powerful man in that regime. Number three, he designated Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps as a terrorist organization. Number four, he recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. Number five, he moved the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem and recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital. We can go on and on. And then, unrelated to the Iranian axis, but on a side note, dealing with the Sunni wing of radical Islam, he destroyed the ISIS caliphate. So President Trump has a pretty darn good track record when it comes to both Israel and Iran. And for me, that's the only reason I'm not saying, uh-oh, this is bad. If this was Joe Biden or Barack Obama holding these talks, this would not be a good thing, indisputably, because they would be negotiating from a position of weakness. Donald Trump, his administration, enters these talks from a position of strength. He's got all the leverage, and he's not afraid to use it. We saw what he did in his first term to Iran. That's why Iran wanted him dead in the run-up to the 2024 election. And you see now the situation Iran's in. Folks, they're virtually, I don't want to say helpless, but they're desperate. They're vulnerable. That's why I'm saying don't let them off the hook. For the love of God, do not let them off the hook. They've never been this weak in 46 years since the launch of their revolution. I've talked about this a bunch on the channel, but if you're new, just to reiterate where Iran's at right now. and why they enter these talks from a position of extreme, extreme weakness. Number one, their ring of fire that I mentioned at the top, it's been smashed. Israel's largely taken care of that. Hamas, Hezbollah licking their wounds, severely weakened. They'll never be the same. Hamas, Hezbollah, also Islamic Jihad in Gaza, that other Iranian proxy there, they will never be the same after the beating Israel has dealt to them. Bashar al-Assad gone out of Syria, and that was a crucial, crucial transit point for Iran. Iran's essentially been evicted from Syria now. Another pup here. Then the Houthis in Yemen. Look, the U.S. right now is dealing death blows to them in Yemen. So look, you take the Houthis off of that ring of fire. And then the Iraqi militias, look, they've been awful quiet, although I reported here on the channel a few days ago, Iran is starting to resupply them with ballistic missiles that can reach Europe. But other than the Iraqi militias right now, apparently, that ring of fire is severely weakened. Number two, Iran's air defenses. In late October, Israel virtually destroyed Iran's air defenses, added it all up. And this regime is exposed and weak. And if Israel and the United States want it, they've got a clear path to Iran's sites, Iran's nuclear sites. So that brings us to the issue at hand and these new negotiations. Now, I'm saying, for the love of God, you've got arguably the world's most evil regime, certainly in the top three to five, along with its other gathering storm members like North Korea, China, etc. But you've got them in a corner. Don't make the mistake that was made in 2015. When sanctions were biting, the regime was weakened, and then President Obama lets them off the hook with a sweetheart nuclear deal that was awful. That only strengthened the regime and delivered them billions of dollars in sanctions relief. So we can't let them off the hook. I think President Trump knows that very well. And look, the guy's a deal maker, number one. And that's one of the reasons I think he's even entertaining these talks. If you read The Art of the Deal, his book, he says, I love making deals. He loves it. He enjoys it. And he enjoys, and he says this in the book, he enjoys taking on the kind of deals that seem impossible. Well, getting Iran to abandon its nuclear weapons program seems pretty darn impossible. Ideologically, eschatologically, this regime is committed to developing the bomb. So what Bibi Netanyahu's asking for, the Israeli prime minister, and he visited the Oval Office earlier this week on Monday, met with President Trump, is a Libya-style deal. If there will indeed be a nuclear deal with Iran, if it can be reached. Bibi's saying a Libya-style deal, like in 2003, Muammar Gaddafi gave up his nuclear program. Apologies, my sheepadoodle making some noise in the background, biting something. But Libya gave up its nuclear weapons program. And its sites were dismantled, the whole 9 yards. And Bibi's saying, look, if you do that, if the world or the U.S. with Europe, whoever, the UN, they go in and they literally dismantle Iran's nuclear sites. So there are no more nuclear sites. I mean, there's about 12 of them at least scattered throughout the country, many of them fortified deep underground. If you do that, Bibi said, well, okay. And if they eliminate their ballistic missile program, do away with that, maybe then we have a credible deal. Anyone watching right now, do you really think Iran would agree to that? Again, I said we have a highly educated audience. Do you really think the Ayatollahs would agree to completely dismantle their nuclear program that they've worked on for 30 years at least? Give up their burgeoning ballistic missile program, which, by the way, they're working on intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, that could reach the United States where I'm sitting right now. That's why the U.S. has a dog in this hunt, needless to say. Do you really think they'd give up their nuclear weapons program and their ballistic missile program and cease and desist their sponsorship of terror throughout the region? It's just not who they are. If they did that, they wouldn't be the Iranian regime anymore. They exist, Iran and its proxies, like Hamas, like Hezbollah. They exist for one reason and one reason only: to maim, murder, well, I guess it's a few reasons, maim, murder, destroy, cause havoc, and impose a radical Shia Islamic jihadist ideology on the region and the world. That's why they exist. So if they suddenly stop pursuing that end, meaning they dismantle their nuclear program, Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas drop their weapons. Who are they? Who are they at that point? They're not Hamas anymore. They're not Hezbollah anymore. And it's not the Iranian regime anymore. Do you really think this jihadi leopard is going to change its spots and they're suddenly magically going to moderate after 46 years of terror and mayhem? Everything the Iranian regime has touched has turned to hell on earth, whether it's Gaza, Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Yemen. What's the common thread in all those countries which literally have become hell on earth? All of them. Iran's involvement, Iran's entrenchment. They're basically satellite states of the Iranian regime. And that common theme stretches to Iran itself, where the economy is in a shambles right now. And look, another point where we talk about if you want to take out these nuclear sites, now's the time, folks. I mean, not only is the Ring of Fire smashed, their air defenses are down, but their economy's a shambles. They're desperate. And you have Trump in office. If not now, when? And I've said this is the year of reckoning for Iran's nuclear program. We will know by the end of 2025 which way this is going to go. We'll know, look, if Israel, the U.S., together, solo, whatever, if they're going to destroy Iran's nuclear sites, or at least attempt to destroy them, do a pretty good job in a strike, and at least halfway destroy them, buy time, buy a few years. I say that in terms of Israel because, look, the U.S. has these heavy, heavy bunker-busting bombs, which, by the way, they're at the Diego Garcia Air Base in the Indian Ocean right now. You have several B-2, U.S. B-2 bombers there that can carry these massive bunker busters, yes, that can penetrate those deeply fortified Iranian nuclear sites. Israel also has U.S. supplied bunker busters, but not to that magnitude. But they've got some pretty effective bunker busters for sure. And Israel, look, the ingenuity, the genius of the IDF, I mean, over the years has been proven time and time again, and Israeli intelligence. So there are other means besides just conventional airstrikes to destroy those Iranian nuclear sites. But at any rate, in the very least, any strike would have to set back that nuclear program at least 5 years. Ideally, it would be such a strike of such magnitude that it would deter Iran from ever trying to develop nuclear weapons ever again. That's the goal. So President Trump's giving them one last chance. And I said this the other day, the thumbnail of the live stream the other day it said Iran's last chance. That's it. I mean, this is it. If they do not agree to a deal essentially under those Libya-style conditions that I mentioned earlier, then those nuclear sites will be destroyed through military force. That's not launching a war, quote unquote, against Iran. I've heard people say this over the past few days. It's surgical strikes to destroy their nuclear facilities. Not U.S. boots on the ground, not an occupation, not a war, nothing like that. Not invasion. It's airstrikes, nuclear sites destroyed. The American fighters come home, or back to Diego Garcia Air Base. That is the plan. That's what it would be. It's same if Israel does it, or if they do it together. Look, as I mentioned, the U.S. has those bunker busters. The U.S. also has those mid-air refueling planes that Israeli fighter jets would no doubt need to carry out this mission. But Trump said earlier in the week, Israel would lead this mission, meaning the U.S. would cooperate with Israel. So Trump, the deal maker, and look, he's got people in his ear as well, folks. He's got it. There's definitely an isolationist wing. He's got some great pro-Israel folks, Mike Waltz, National Security Advisor, Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, Mike Huckabee, now the ambassador to Israel. He's got some great people who get it, who get the Middle East. He also does have some isolationist voices who are influential in and out of the administration, but who have his ear, I'm sure. So he's got a lot of voices in either ear, put it that way. So he's weighing all this, and I think he's saying, look, and he came to office saying, look, I'm a peacemaker. I don't want war. I came into office to end wars, not to start them. Understood. So he's saying, look, time is short. I'm giving Iran one last chance. He said, what do you know? Maybe They're so weak right now. They're so defenseless right now, not completely defenseless, of course, but they're in such a bad way. And the regime is so desperate that maybe finally they'll actually listen to reason this time and abandon their nuclear program. I don't see it happening. But look, I'm not going to argue with him giving it a try. I mean, if it was Barack Obama or Joe Biden, I'd have many arguments because they'd be doing it from a position of weakness. How do I know that? Did you see the first Iran deal that Barack Obama agreed to in 2015? It only strengthened Iran, billions of dollars in sanctions relief that they used to build missiles and to fund their proxies. And speaking of missiles, missiles weren't even on the agenda in that first Iran nuclear deal. Essentially, the U.S. and the world got nothing, and Iran got everything. It was blackmail. It was extortion. Iran said, give us what we want, give us hundreds of billions of dollars in sanctions relief, or else. And the U.S. caved and gave them whatever they wanted and asked for nothing in return. So, yeah, I'd have a problem if it was that regime, Obama, Biden, that crew, trying to negotiate and talk. President Trump, as I said earlier, has a proven track record when it comes to Iran and a proven track record when it comes to Israel. So who am I to say, no, don't even take a chance? Look, he's a commander-in-chief. He's negotiating from a position of strength. He has all the leverage, and he's not afraid to use it. Look, it's worth a shot. It's one last gasp to avoid war, and Trump can say to the world, I tried. We met with them. We had multiple talks. They just didn't want to do a deal, and they didn't want to play ball. They are obsessed with developing the bomb. So we had no choice but to strike them. So I see what he's doing here. And I have faith and confidence in him that if there is some sort of deal, some sort of Iran deal 2.0, that it would have to be a deal that would be very favorable, of course, to the United States, and it would leave Iran nuclearless. Is that a word? So until he proves otherwise, I'm trusting that President Trump, if there is a deal struck here, that it will be a deal that's obviously beneficial to America, to the free world, to Israel, that leaves Iran even more weakened. Here's the deal, though, with Iran. Reportedly, the only reason they agreed to these talks, Ayatollah Khamenei, is because his team told him flat out, look, if we don't do these talks, our regime may collapse. They were very, I mean, Khamenei is 85 years old. I don't think he gets out much. But his team, his minions that surround him, his foreign policy team, everyone else, the president, Pezeshkian, the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, the real power brokers in that regime, they were very honest with him. And they said, look, Trump is going to strike our nuclear sites. And if he does that, it could be the end of our regime, because they may also assassinate Iranian leaders, right? They may take out the regime, or more likely scenario, the Iranian people rise up. And I think that's what a lot of us have been asking for years. The Iranian people, large numbers of whom detest this regime and are the main victims of this wicked regime, have had this regime's jackboot on their necks for 46 years. The Iranian people is who ideally would rise up. And the good news is, and I shed no tears for the Iranian regime in this regard, or in any regard, okay, if this ends in military action, the regime might topple. If it doesn't end in military action, but it ends in Iran agreeing to a nuclear deal, essentially capitulating, a humiliating nuclear deal that enforces a complete dismantlement of their nuclear program, they also look pretty weak. They look weak if their nuclear sites are struck. It's disarray. They also look pretty weak if they agree to a humiliating deal. And either way, the Iranian people might say they're weak, they're ripe for the taking. So I'm staying optimistic on that front. Either way, they could be very vulnerable here. And I think President Trump knows that as well, and his team. One thing to leave you with, when I talk about the Iranian people, a note of encouragement. And by the way, look, Israel is watching all this very closely. And Israel, I would assume, is none too happy that these talks are taking place, and understandably, because they, like me and like you, most likely, they know these talks aren't going to go anywhere. They've seen this script before. Iran sandbags and stretches it out and stalls for time and talks in circles. Remember, the game of chess was invented in ancient Persia, which is modern day Iran. They're master chess players. They're also great deal makers. So Bibi knows, and Bibi's concern is they're going to stretch this out. And while they're stretching it out, covertly, they're going to build their nuclear program back up, rebuild their air defenses, resupply their proxies. The longer this takes, the more it benefits Iran. He knows this. And if there's a bad deal, God forbid, that's agreed to, and Israel feels it's going to have to strike, Israel perhaps would have to do it without U.S. assistance. And that could cause tension between President Trump and Bibi. Who knows? That's kind of a worst case nightmare scenario, of course. But Israel is watching with huge interest. And I think Bibi also, what I said earlier, he's thinking, look, I think this is a lost cause. I don't even know why we're doing it. But he's thinking, Trump gets it. I can trust Trump. The first term, incredible on Iran, incredible on Israel. Unless he throws a curveball and look, folks, anything's possible, and agrees to a bad deal, then I'm going to trust him on this, and trust that if Iran starts its shenanigans in these negotiations, Trump's going to cut it and do what needs to be done. We shall see. A closing word of encouragement: keep it in prayer, and we'll be talking about this a bunch over the next few weeks, I'm sure. Ancient Persia, I mentioned, modern day Iran, is home to the fastest growing church in the world. The Christian church is exploding in Iran today. So know that. Hey, the land of Esther, Mordecai, Cyrus, Darius. And I want to mention our partner today as well. I meant to mention them earlier, but we still have got a lot of people watching. So Mayor Panim, our dear friends at israelcharity.org. Passover is here. Chag Sameach, happy Passover to all my Israeli and Jewish friends around the world. But many Israelis are struggling during this Passover season. Mayor Panim, this is where they do their best work. You want to bless Israel in its time of greatest need, fulfill that mandate laid out in Genesis 12:3. Look, 125,000 holiday pantry boxes delivered every holiday by Mayor Panim. 2.6 million meals to Israelis in need. Supporting 2,000 displaced families every day, 2,200 Holocaust survivors, supported 500 widows, mothers, and wives of IDF soldiers, renovated hundreds of homes for Holocaust survivors, served over 1.25 million people, needy Israelis, with meals in their restaurant-style soup kitchens. Folks, I've been there, and I've worked in these soup kitchens. They're amazing, and I've served Holocaust survivors, a great honor in my life. This is Mayor Panim. It's israelcharity.org. An incredible organization. I don't endorse many. They have to bless Israel and do God's work, and Mayor Panim checks both boxes. And you can do that too in Israel's time of greatest need during Passover, arguably the most important time on the calendar for the land of Israel. It's israelcharity.org. Look, what Mayor Panim wants to do this Passover: hundreds of thousands of dollars of grocery shopping cards for needy families, over 25,000 ready-made meals they want to deliver to people Passover, over 100,000 pantry bags with staple foods, milk, bread, eggs, dozens of Passover Seder meals in high-risk areas. Remember, tens of thousands of Israelis displaced in the north and the south because of the war. And this is Israel's time of greatest need again. And I believe it's a mandate that believers have to bless Israel. And in supporting Mayor Panim, you're doing exactly that. You may not be able to get to Israel, but this is the next best thing. It's israelcharity.org. Check them out. Until next time, thanks for joining us. Keep it all in prayer. God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.